into this, I went on to Bill Mantlow's Wikipedia page and read a good bit. He's the guy that was co-creator of Cloak and Dagger and also wrote what we read in this series. But yeah, I hopped on the Marvel Wiki. I've got a few things to read from that. What are you seeing something that's sticking out?
I just that. I mean, I think we should address some of the origin. We've never talked about it before, and we probably never will again. So yeah. we should just talk about where it came from. I picked this trade, I think, because it was like an Amazon Prime one, and it seemed like a good one to do, and it was an entire run of a series.
Yeah, dude. Jeez.
So, and I tend to kind of want to do like focused stories. I just want to read this really quick, and then we can jump into it. All right, Marvel Cinematic Universe. Jeff Loeb of Marvel Television reported blah 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 in the ABC series. There's really the live action Cloak and Dagger series is in development, freeform. Okay, let's go to that. 10 episodes appearing June 7th through August 2nd. Writing for Cloak and Dagger began in August 2016, plus rewriting his initial script that November. When announcing the series, Freeform called the first venture into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. I was trying to see if there was anything that connected to any of the actual Cloak and Dagger comics, and I'm not seeing much here.
Oh, you're talking about plot-wise for the new show?
Yeah. The Marvel Cinematic tie-in. In July, Loeb said there were no plans to cross over, nor to cross over across networks with the similarly themed Marvel's Runaways on Hulu. He added that Marvel wanted the series to find its footing before further connecting with other elements of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They'll ceasing to comment on each other, which we try to touch base whenever we can. Things that are happening in Los Angeles, where the Runaways are set, are not exactly going to be affecting what's happening in New Orleans, which is, I guess, where this is set. It's being aware of it and trying to find a way for it to be able to discuss it in ways that make sense. Roxxon Corporation, a corporation featured throughout the MCU, is seen in the series The Dark Force Dimension, which fuels Cloak's powers, were previously established in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that I figured I knew was going to be a connection, but it doesn't look like this was... I'm just thinking in terms of talking about this trade tonight, when you ask me, like, why are we talking about it? It has no connection to the series other than they're both about the same characters.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Are you ready?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Source Material. I am your host, Jesse Starcher, and with me, stalwart and shooting through, soldiering forth.
I found a boo-boo on me.
He's got a boo-boo.
Where's your boo-boo? Yeah. Let me see. Stop. Move your hand.
That's the boo-boo.
Is this the boo-boo right here?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Is it this the boo-boo? Right there?
Oh, yeah. That's the boo-boo.
Are you going to die?
Is he bleeding?
Are you going to bleed?
No, I think...
Do you want to?
No,
Do you bleed?
Do you bleed? Jonas, I'm in the middle of something. Can you go back to bed?
Yeah.
No, don't go talk to your mother about your stupid boo-boo. I've seen it. There's nothing wrong with you. Go to bed.
You're good to go, son.
Now, can you please go into your room? Thank you.
See, 3 or 4? I can't remember.
He's 4.
He's 4. Okay, my 4-year-old will probably join us here later. Good. I'm certain of it. He took a nap today when he shouldn't have. So anyway, all right.
Can we try this one more time from the top?
Take 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Source Material. My name is Jesse Starcher, and this evening we will be discussing let's try this again. We'll be discussing a book that synergizes with an upcoming television show. And by my side this evening, as he has been for quite a while now. And
I've taken over the whole show.
He's taken over. He's the patriarch. What can I say? You can't tell the guy no. Don't want to do that. He owns the place. He can walk in, he'll double your rent. That's right. He's not. He is. Excuse me. He is the patriarch, Mark Radulich. So, Mark, we're absent Ronnie Adams tonight. Unfortunately, his mouse is still depressed.
Yeah, I was like, what is his problem tonight? That he is his pig filthy? What's happening?
Is pig filthy? Is his mouse depressed? From what I understand, he has had some savage technical issues. I don't know if his computer is just not jiving with Google, but we'll send him the link for the Hangout, and he can't get it to work. Just for some strange reason, it will not work. I think he's trying to do it through both. I think he's trying to do it through his iPad and through his iPhone. So it's just like, and I think his computer is pretty much out of the question because he's not able to do anything with the mouse. So now technical problems aside, Ronnie Adams, I'm sure he will at some point get those fixed. So he sends his best wishes. Can't be with us tonight, which is perfectly fine. Me and Mark Radulich, we're going to be talking some comic book fun stuff here tonight. So Mark, tell me what we're doing tonight and what are we synergizing with?
On June 7th on the Freeform Network, formerly ABC Family, Marvel will release its newest television product, Cloak and Dagger, which is it's being described sort of a teen romance YA type series. I'm sure you'll jump right into that, Jesse.
I almost may watch it with Kira just to see.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, we've watched Riverdale, which is probably pretty YA if you've ever seen any of it. It's very much in the vein of like some of the older shows, Dawson's Creek.
You have to watch it. We're set to do a TV party on this on September 11th.
Well, then I guess it will happen for sure.
It's going to be the day after we discuss Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
Heavens to Murgatroyd. Anywho, so yeah, I hope you'll watch it. You know what we're going to be doing that week as well? Reviewing Clutch Book of Bad Decisions.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Yep. This is all once I get back from my cruise, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah. Anywho, let's get back to June. Can't stop scheduling. Won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Anyway, so yes, 10 episodes going to be on Freeform, formerly ABC Family. So when this airs on the Radulich Broadcasting Network that week, we're looking at a trade paperback called Cloak and Dagger Lost and Found. It's the 11-issue run. Jesse will tell you all about who is responsible for this nonsense. But it's a nice primer for possibly what the series will be. Now, I've been doing some reading about the series, and it definitely focuses more on the relationship between Cloak and Dagger than I think the comic does, though the comic book is definitely fueled by their connection to each other, but it's still more comic book superhero-y. This seems to be leaning a little less on that and more on the romance stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll revisit this topic once the show has aired, and we'll talk about it on TV Party tonight in September. But for the time being, we're gonna talk about this comic book.
Yes, all right. So I asked you a couple of weeks back, or maybe it was last week, because I was getting prepared to read this thing. I said, what issues were covered in this? And I was really surprised we were going so far back. I mean, this is the original 1985 ongoing series. Now, there was a 4-issue series prior to this that was written and published, was actually received very well. And Bill Mantlo, who is the co-creator of Cloak and Dagger, was given the go-ahead to do an ongoing series. So what we are doing tonight is we're actually reviewing the ongoing series in whole, 1 through 11. And after 11 hit, the series got canceled And they decided, okay, well, we're going to pair this with Doctor Strange and put it into a book called Strange Tales, which is actually a book that's been that title's been around and used since the 50s. Strange Tales was revived in 1987, and the first 2 issues kind of cap off this story. And trust me, at first our plan was to just do 1 through 11 and call it a day. But no, those other 2 issues in Strange Tales actually cover what I thought was desperately needed to be finished from this story. Because I was at issue 11, I'm like, okay, there are way too many questions that need to be answered here. And Mark, as we go through the issues, I'll kind of tell you first off where I think I think right at the beginning, there's some questions that I have. But before we get into that, let me get into my notes here, and I'll kind of give you some an idea of just who the creator is. A guy by the name of Bill Mantlo, who's been around for quite a while. Like I said, he's co-creator, but he's the writer of this series. So I kind of focused most of my research on him, grabbing from the wiki, of course. And I'll read a few things here from you, from it for you. So Bill Mantlo's first run on the Spectacular Spider-Man. If you collected Spectacular Spider-Man, you may have recognized that name popping up on there. Featured frequent appearances by the White Tiger. He used the series to wrap up unresolved plot elements from the Champions series and wrote a multiple issue storyline that included the first work by artist, you'd recognize this name, Mark Radulich, Frank Miller, on the Daredevil character. So, yeah. Now, this is where things even get, you may recognize his name a little bit more. I guess I should say, Mark, have you ever heard of Bill Mantlo going into this?
I've heard of Bob Hope and Barry Manilow.
Not a combination of the two, unfortunately. No, Bill Mantlo.
I was wondering if you were going to get that or not.
Bill Mantlo, here's the second part. I grabbed this straight out of the wiki just for you. Bill Mantlo began writing The Incredible Hulk with issue 245 in 1980. His 5-year run on the series was noted for his depiction of the Hulk as highly emotional and humanized, rather than bestial and savage. Among the adversaries he created for the series were the UFOs and the Soviet super soldiers. Summarizing his early years with the Hulk, Mantlo remarked, I did retreads of old Hulk stories to try and find a new direction, and just kept doing more and more repetition of what had already happened. Then the editor, Al Milgrom, said, well, don't accept this. If you want to make changes, make them. Take some risks. That's when we decided to give Hulk Bruce Banner's intelligence. From that point on, I felt as if I had finally if I had finally had a direction and control over the character. So I guess I took 1.5 years or maybe 2 years to get to the point. Yes, that's indicative in this series as well. How long it takes him to tell a story. Because you get that all over Cloak and Dagger. But Mark, does any of that ring a bell with Incredible Hulk at all?
Yes. If we're talking about the run where the Hulk became the Professor,
the thing is,
he took over the Pantheon.
This is 1980 to 1985 would be his run, so that might be a little bit earlier.
Well, I remember I feel like the Pantheon run was in the 90s.
Same here. Same here. So maybe this was something they kind of played with back then, and then they kind of played, used that bit for some more storytelling in the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're talking early 80s issues of The Incredible Hulk. Now, he stops writing for The Incredible Hulk in 1985. He is then given the reins to Cloak and Dagger here after he wrote, I think the original 4-issue series came out in 83. And then, like I said, it became a hit. But just another real quick, it's a sad note, actually, about Bill Mantlo. On July 17, 1992, Mantlo was struck by a car while rollerblading. The driver of the car fled the scene and was never identified. Mantlo suffered severe head trauma. And I read on, I didn't copy this straight out of the wiki, but I read on a little bit, and it's sad, man. I mean, this guy had... He ever since that accident, they said he's lived in confusion. He was in a comatose state for quite a while, had a lot of brain damage. But one of the things that I thought was really comforting, I guess I would say, even though after all this writing he did for Marvel, and he wasn't able to do that anymore. I mean, he's lived his life, I guess, in a health facility. You know, he's under constant care. But when Guardians of the Galaxy came to the screen, Bill Mantlo created Rocket Raccoon.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, they gave him a special pre-screening of the movie when he's still alive to this day. He's 66 years old. He's fell on some really unfortunate times, but anyway, that's Bill Mantlo. That's our guy that we're reading tonight, who wrote every single issue here. 11 issues straight. Now, usually these things are dropped monthly, so this is a year's worth of time that Bill stayed on this comic. Let's talk about Cloak and Dagger. Mark, familiarity with the characters. Do you know much about Cloak and Dagger at all?
Well, they showed up in the Runaways that we read by Brian K. Vaughan. That's
right. They sure did.
I am aware. I've never read any of the Cloak and Dagger comics. I'm aware of who they are, and what they did. I know that. I mean, obviously, we just read the comics, so I'm more familiar with them now than I had been. But what I knew of them at the time was I knew Dagger could throw daggers of light, and I knew that Cloak was a portal to another dimension, and that they were actually kind of, you know, I'm actually surprised you didn't read more about these guys since you're into the street level folk. They were teenage vigilantes. They went after you know, the drug dealers and stuff like that. I think they may have had a dalliance or two with the Avengers, but they always kind of kept to themselves and did their own thing.
Yeah. These were two characters that I think I might have maybe one or two issues from the series that dropped after this. This series ended in 86 or 87, and it ended up getting picked back up again, or going into its own ongoing title. It had to have been maybe 1990. I wish I had the stuff in front of me. I don't, unfortunately, but I do have a couple issues from that. But these two characters mostly showed up in Spider-Man. That's where I would see them pop up every once in a while. Matter of fact, Maximum Carnage, I believe they showed up in that. We also talked about them in Civil War, where I think Cloak was one of the heavy hitters, where I think he brought everybody into the dark dimension, and then they did like an ambush at some point, one of the sides. I can't remember which side he was on. I think it was Captain America's side. So he was really actually an integral part in the turning of the tide for Civil War. But that I didn't really know much about him either. This wasn't a couple of people or a couple of characters that I felt like, man, I need to know more about what they do. So lo and behold, Mark Radledge says, hey, I've got something to cover. And I don't know much about Bill Mantlo. I didn't know his writing style, what we were going to get into. And Mark said, we're going to do 11 issues. I said, okay, I can do it. I can do it in a day. So sometimes I feel like we may have bit off a little bit more than we can chew.
Yeah, well, this is why we didn't do Infinity, for that reason. And I'm really trying to be a little bit more choosy with what we do on this show, because I know that I can't get to a lot of times 10 issues in a single day.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is, especially when each one of these issues, I think, was 24 pages, with the 11th issue being a 40-page final issue. So that right there is, I think, 280, and then the two issues from Strange Tales were combined. That was probably about another 20 pages. So we're talking 300 pages of Bill Mantlo writing, which, man, he can write, and he does. And sometimes I've said it before on this podcast, I wish the art would talk, let the art speak instead of, Kevin Smithing it.
Here's what I've noticed. It's not that bad. Here's what I've noticed, that there definitely was a trend in the 80s to over dialogue and overwrite.
Exposition.
Yeah. The characters always had to be saying and doing stuff. There was also a lot of repetition. Like when we get to the Fantastic Four, I'm sure by the end of that, both of us are going to want to throw ourselves out a window. And as much as I love the Fantastic Four, that style of writing, especially reading some of the newer comics, drives me up the wall because everything, it's like here,
dude, it's like seriously, they write a book and then they throw, okay, now I want you to draw art to it. It's like,
that's the thing, but it's always. I remember I used to read the Bloom County comic. Do you remember Bloom County with Opus the Penguin and Bill the Cat?
I think so, yes.
And like every panel, somebody was introducing. So here is the third grade teacher entering through, and they would be monologuing the characters. They would be monologuing their own entrances or exits from a panel, which granted, these are only 4-panel comics, so it's fun. And it was funny when Bloom County did it. When it's a Marvel comic and it's every issue, it's like, oh my God. And we're going to talk about that with Cloak and Dagger because I liked that the story wasn't crazy about the writing, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
But again, it's that repetition of like every issue they have to kind of repeat I mean, we had this problem with Black Lightning too.
Yes.
Where that story could have been a lot shorter had he not been repeating the same problems every issue.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me get back to the characters here real quick because I want to let everybody know who Cloak and Dagger are. I mean, these are 2 characters. They've been mainstays in the Marvel universe.
The black and a hot white chick. Every black woman's nightmare.
Oh no.
Shots fired.
So Cloak. Let's talk about Cloak first. He is known as Tyrone Johnson, a 17-year-old boy from Boston, Massachusetts,
Of course he is.
He has a debilitating stutter. He ran away to New York City when his speech impediment prevented him from stopping his friend from being shot by the police, who mistakenly believed he had just robbed the store. Now, I grabbed most of this off of Marvel Wiki, so there's a possibility that some of this stuff may have come after the series that we read, or it may have happened to show up in the 4 issues prior to this series. But regardless, this is where this information's coming from.
Yeah, well, their debut actually takes place in the Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah, issue 64, I think it was, which I don't know much about it. All right, Dagger, 16-year-old Tandy Bowen. She comes from a privileged upbringing, born in Shaker Heights, Ohio, right up the road, ladies and gentlemen, who ran away because her multimillionaire supermodel mother was too busy with her career and social life to spend time with her daughter. And that does rear its head in this series. So the 2 teens become fast friends when the naive Tandy accepted an offer of shelter from some strange men. A wary Tyrone went along to protect her. However, the 2 teens were soon forcibly delivered to criminal chemist Simon Marshall. Marshall was developing a new synthetic heroin for the Magia, M-A-G-G-I-A. Testing it out on runaway teens with fatal results. Johnson and Bowen somehow survived injections of the drug, and they fled. During their escape, Tyrone found himself engulfed in darkness and seized by a strange hunger, which eased in the presence of Tandy, who was glowing with a brilliant light. Trying to hide his newly shadowy appearance in a makeshift cloak, Tyrone begins absorbing Marshall's thugs into his darkness, while Tandy struck them down with daggers of light. The 2 teens dubbed themselves Cloak and Dagger and declared war on drug crime. And of course, obviously,
then they broke out into Madonna's Ray of Light.
The obvious influence here for them to come up with that name is the much famed Cloak and Dagger movie from 1984 starring Dabney Coleman.
Yes, which has to do with spies, by the way. Like, honestly, the cloak, as in you're cloaked, not you're wearing a cloak.
Yes, indeed. So there you go. There is a quick shot of their origin. Now, we get that pretty much rehashed. So what I'm going to do here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go through, we're going to do 4 issues, break, maybe talk about something, another 4 issues, break, talk about something, and then another 4 issues, 4 or 5, and talk about something. So, and then we'll finish it up. So I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible, do my best to condense what happened in these issues. So, Mark, any burning desires before I jump into it?
Yeah, I can condense them. Dagger can't make up her fucking mind what she wants to do, and Cloak is on the brink of enveloping the entire world into the darkness. Every issue. Cloak
is dark in this. And that, granted, okay, yeah, fine, I understand. Darkness dimension. But there is shit that happens with this guy that I'm like, at the end of the first 2 issues, I'm holding it off. Let me do the first 4 issues, and then we'll talk about this. Okay, so here we go. All right, so this is 1985, ladies and gentlemen, New York City, Times Square. So we have Cloak and Dagger, who are definitely in their superhero mode. We're not starting from, we're not starting from day one. These guys have been doing a little bit of crime fighting. They're still young. I think actually Tandy Dagger is, I think she says she's 16 in like the first or second issue. But you notice that Cloak kind of has this real bad need. It's kind of like a fix for Tandy, and he's always worried. He's got this paranoia about her leaving him. And you kind of see their presence, or their powers, I guess you say, their power set. It all happens in issue 1. It all happens at this like this seedy underbellied pornographer's place where this guy goes in, drops a coin for a peep show, and there's this girl who's been brought into there somewhat against her will. I would say she definitely wants out. So Cloak and Dagger are all about rescuing the children from the streets, the runaways. They were runaways themselves at one time, and now they feel the need that they need to save those that have befell the same circumstances from the dangers of the streets. So that's what they're doing here. They rescue a girl in issue 1, and you got to get to see the power set and how everything kind of goes down. You also get to see a familiar, let me try that again, a setting that is kind of their home throughout most of these issues, which is the church. I think it's the Church of the Holy Ghost, or the Holy Ghost Church of the Holy Ghost, something like it. I can't remember, but
Holy Ghost.
So they call that their sanctuary, and there's a priest that is offered sanctuary there, and he shows up.
This fucking guy,
dude. You got to issue 7, and I don't even know if that happened. What takes place? We're going to get to that, but there's some creepy stuff that happens with this dude. We'll talk about that. But anyway, the priest does not trust Cloak at all. He thinks Cloak has some kind of a hold over Dagger. And yeah, there's definitely something there that's kind of, I don't want to say creepy, but it's off-putting for sure, at least in this first issue. And that's pretty much what we have. We get a retelling of their origin, which I just did earlier about the drugs being injected to them. Also, Cloak has this teleportation power.
Hang on, could we just talk about their origin for a second?
Absolutely.
So I'm okay with the concept of they were experimented on, and that's how they got their powers. That's their explanation for Luke Cage. That's their explanation for Jessica Jones. But their experimentation ended up with very, very physical powers. Okay, Luke Cage is bulletproof. Jessica Jones can jump high and is super strong and all of that. How does being experimented on give you a magic portal into a dark dimension?
It's a great question.
I mean, even to a certain, I can even buy to a certain degree Dagger's powers. Where something happened with her biochemistry, and she's able to create, physical objects out of light and throw them at you. Okay, sure. And I can even buy if they had started with, maybe they'll do this in the series, but they had the Inhuman gene, and between the experimentation and the Terrigenesis, they got these wacko powers.
Well, you're on to something there. Okay, because if you go to the Cloak and Dagger wiki, species, human mutates. So I don't know if they're considered mutants, but they definitely had some. Human mutate may mean, let's just click on it because there is an option just to click on it. Mutate comics. So here we go. In the Marvel Comics universe, the term mutate refers to humans who were turned into superhumans, as opposed to mutants, inhumans, and other subraces of humanity whose superhuman characteristics are genetically inherited. So, yeah, this, I guess, I mean, their powers are just a direct result from that pharmaceutical dude.
But that's the thing. Like, Cloak's powers don't make any sense. He has, I mean, he's, to me, it would have made more sense if someone had given him like a mystical cloak, and when he puts it on, he becomes this other being, and the cloak has magic.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, kind of.
Mhm.
Like Cloak makes more sense as a mystic than as he does the product of experimentation.
I hear you. I hear you.
Now, unless he was able to generate the portal himself, and he decided, okay, well, this makes more sense if I'm wearing a cloak. You know, like he tried, like maybe he tried it with a raincoat, and people thought he was flashing them. And, you know.
Well, they did say that. I think in that origin, he grabbed a cloak, and I think honestly he could wear anything he wanted, but it's because he transmits this dark force dimension around him, and somehow the cloak. He's able to just keep it inside anything he wears. I don't think the cloak has any powers.
I was gonna say I think I misunderstood like his powers because here's the thing. He talks about how the cloak as if it's doing something. Like if I close my cloak, then you can't get out of the dark dimension. Maybe if I had read the original like Spectacular Spider-Man or the 4-issue limited series and explained it a little bit more, I might not have been so confused. But just reading this cold, it makes it sound like the cloak is generating the dark dimension, not his person. Which again, I still don't understand how experimentation got him to become a living portal to the dark dimension.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if there was like a long series of experimentation on these people or not, or if they were just injected one time, because they were like the only ones that survived out of these runaways that these guys grabbed a hold of. But I hear where you're coming from. Going into this cold, I was right there with you, Mark. I had questions. I was like, okay, I don't understand what's going on here, and you know, there was a lot of things that were kind of left. You had to probably
wouldn't have made more sense if he had like a talisman or you know some sort of like you know an infinity stone, something that would have given him that power. Not
them drugs.
No, yeah, not them drugs. Them bones.
All right. Well, let me read the powers here. I want to give everybody's ability.
No, I would prefer to keep interrupting you.
No, sir. Cloak has the power of teleportation. He can teleport himself, just like I mentioned. He can teleport other things as well. So when you fall into the cloak, as long as you got a hold of dagger, which is important, because anybody who falls into this cloak, which is it's inhabited by the dark force dimension, you are shown your own personal hell if you don't have anybody there, such as pretty much if you don't have dagger there to help you out, or if cloak expels you out, you're going to see some scary shit inside that inside the dark force dimension. There he has the teleportation and tangibility and ability to link to the dark force dimension. Now dagger is able to create daggers of light, ability to purge addictions from people, which I didn't see in here, and ability to heal with her light daggers. It also mentions that it comes up a couple times throughout these issues, like if you get hit with one of her daggers, it like stuns you or puts you into shock because you see like what you could have been. So take that for what it's worth. Not listed here on the wiki, but it definitely shows up in the series.
They have very Ghost Rider-y powers.
Yes, very much so. And it's almost like, you know, you see, what is that called? The penance stare, where he looks at you and it's vengeance. All right. So there's kind of
hang on one second. What's up, buddy?
Bedtime or something?
Why would you come out here and ask me if it's bedtime?
Yeah. Is it bedtime? Is it dark?
Huh?
I don't know.
Let me tell you this way. Whether or not you sleep right now is immaterial to me. What I need you to do is not keep coming out of the room.
You know what immaterial means?
Oh, you're actually just keeping me in the room.
Stay in the room, yes.
Oh.
Thank you.
It's not actually bedtime.
Yes, I just said immaterial to my 4-year-old. What about it?
No, yes, I understand. You talk big to them, they're going to have. I know how that all works. If you talk like an adult, they will mature as such.
Yes, so, there's actually studies that show that.
That's what I've heard. And you do the baby talk, it's not a good thing. So
then they start smoking the crack.
In issue 1, we are introduced to Philip Carlisle, who's Dagger's stepdad, who's trying to find her. He doesn't find her in issue 1, and we're also introduced to Detective Bridget O'Reilly, who is a cop.
Shamrocko Irish.
A cop who is darn tired done tired of them vigilantes interfering in her business, and she's on the move, ready to take them down. All right, so there's Detective Bridget O'Reilly, Philip Carlero, Cloak and Dagger, and the priest we talked about earlier that doesn't trust Cloak. All right, now issue 2. This one's a weird one because Tandy's trying to kind of find her way home. She finds out that her mom, I think, lives over in Long Island, and the priest is driving her and Cloak over to her house. Now, there is a weird little arc here where some rich kids want to kill their parents or at least get their attention somehow.
They wanted to get their attention. So they blew up a boat.
So
I don't know about you, but that's how I used to get my parents' attention.
These kids' parents are like, you know, they're getting drunk, getting stoned, telling the kids they're very, very, very rich, and they're just telling the kids like, get away from us, you bother us, leave us alone for right now. And these kids are really upset about it. So anyway, they crash a boat, catch it on fire. That catches Dagger's eye. They had Dagger heads over there to try and figure out what's going on. They run into the kids, and she pretty much finds out their plight, what's wrong. They've got problems with their parents. Well, she's going to march right in there and tell their parents what they did. And then we find out that, oh, wait a second, this is actually her mom's like house. So, this is where she was going to meet her mom at. So her mom is one of these drunken. These parents are just. It's really freaky because remember, she's 16 years old and she walks in and there's all these adults that are just drunk off their ass. And like, there's like 3 or 4 men that are making a pass at her. She finds her mom and her mom's not much better. She's like, don't you see my friends really like you? And that doesn't sit so well with Dagger. And she kind of goes off and she just starts laying everybody out with her light daggers. Now, remember, they don't kill people. She shocks them pretty much. And so all her mom and her guests are filled with these light daggers. Now, in this issue, that Cloak really feels like a villain here because at the end of things, Tandy realizes she has no home to go to, and the priest, I think, comes up to her and is like, you know, trying to console her a little bit. Meanwhile, Cloak is like, don't you see, you know, she had nothing and she only has me. And then he has like this real evil grin and starts laughing, like this maniacal laugh. And I'm like, whoa, Cloak, what is going on here? All right. So that's issue 2. Issue 3, ladies and gentlemen, it's crossover time, coming from the Spider-Man comic. Everybody's favorite web slinger, Spider-Man, shows up. And here we have another example of Dagger's light showing people what they might have been. You know, if you get hit with the light dagger, you get to see what you might have been, and you see all the good that you can do. So all these shitheads out there dealing crack or whatever are shown the best of what they could be, and maybe that'll turn them around. That comes up later. Cloak and Dagger get some info from some drug runners about an upcoming drug shipment. Problem is, police were watching as well and plan to arrest them at the same spot. Dagger does not want to be a vigilante. That theme shows up quite a bit through here. Man, Spider-Man shows up, and after a chance encounter, learns that Tandy's stepdad, Philip Carlisle, is actually in town looking for her. So he actually tells, he actually finds Dagger and says, hey, look, you know, your stepdad's looking for you. Cloak is not a fan of that. If there's any possibility that Dagger can be taken away from Cloak, he has issues. And then, of course, I don't think Cloak was a big fan of Peter Parker. I don't know if he takes his mask off or if Dagger takes his mask off, and then plants a big old smoocheroo right on his face as Spider-Man's trying to say, hey, listen, why not, you know, being out here on the streets, not good. You need to go home. You need to live a regular life. Even though you got powers, doesn't mean you can't live a regular life. Look at me. But yes, in order to nail that home, he gives her a big old smooch. Now Dagger says she is what she is now. You know, there's no going back. My mom doesn't want anything to do with me. Now, they finally track down the drug shipment, or the drugs that are coming into this dock. Well, what we find out is actually this boat's getting ready to go leave to meet up with a boat called the Santa Angela. But they decide to jump in, and Spider-Man kind of jumps in and helps them take these guys out. And at the end of issue 3, Spider-Man is coming to the conclusion that Dagger may actually be coming a little bit more, and the readers also, that Dagger may be coming a little bit more hardened like Cloak. At first, she's kind of like this fluffy little 16, 17-year-old that wants to go find her mommy and daddy and just get back to her regular life. And now things are kind of taking a turn.
Did you call her Fluffy?
Fluffy. I'll call her Fluffy. Issue 4. Oh, shit. The Beyonder. That's what I'm calling it right there. I wish that was the title. Unfortunately, it's not.
Oh, shit. The Beyonder.
Dude, I was all excited. When I saw Secret Wars tie-in up at the top and the Beyonder on the front cover, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. But this is Secret Wars 2, ladies and gentlemen, not the better of the Secret Wars. But anyway, so the Beyonder shows up. The priest, again, is trying to reach out to both Cloak and Dagger, trying to save him. He's not helping things. Now, the Beyonder's like walking through this slum. He's looking to understand happiness. This is so interesting. Now, Mark, you know much about the Beyonder?
I know everything about the Beyonder.
Oh, good. He's from beyond.
Yeah, Daddy. Yes. So I mean, you've covered the Secret Wars series, haven't you?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Now he showed up. Obviously, go ahead.
Okay, well, the original appearance of the Beyonder was that he took all the heroes and all the villains and he put them on Battle World, and they ended up, and he wanted to see them fight each other for whatever his reasons were. And at the end of it, like, Dr. Doom got the power of the Beyonder, Spider-Man got the black suit, which turned out to be an alien. And they eventually all made it back home, except for the Thing, who decided to stay on Battle World for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The sequel to Secret Wars, the Beyonder, and now this all happens because the Beyonder lived in like another dimension, basically,
all by himself.
Yes, and he did not know of the existence of anything else in the outside world. That Reed Richards, that crazy, the true villain of the Marvel universe, he was doing an experiment which caused a pinprick size hole in the Beyonder realm, the realm beyond, and he could see out into the vast expanse of the 616 universe, and he was like, "Oh, I wonder what all this is." So, in the sequel, instead of his experiment on Battleworld, he decides that he's going to take human form and walk among the humans to see what is this world, what is this universe all about.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically, a lot of Secret Wars 2, from what I remember, and it's been a while, is him just having experiences with other heroes and trying to figure out what is humanity.
Yes.
And this issue very much dealt with that. I'm actually wondering if there's a trade paperback for Secret Wars 2.
There's got to be. I'm sure Secret Wars, we know there's one for Secret Wars 1, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's got to be. It's not the better of the two, but regardless.
It depends. I mean, you also got to remember, 80s Marvel is very philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it isn't quite as action-oriented as I think things are now. And yes, there is a paperback.
I was going to say, that was a pretty big event. As you know, I would imagine they would have had that covered. I don't know if I've read it. I know I own, like, I'm pretty sure every issue except for one of the series.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if I've ever read it. I've got the gist of it just from, I've seen crossovers. Say crossovers. I've seen tie-ins. That's the word I'm looking for. I've seen tie-ins much like this one. So I kind of got the idea of what the Beyonder was doing. But so here we go.
From the Amazon. Last time Earth's heroes encountered the Beyonder, they fought for their lives. This time, they fight for all existence. A year after kidnapping the most powerful beings on Earth and pitting them against one another in a secret war on a distant world to sell toys, the omnipotent Beyonder comes to Earth to continue his study of humanity. After being so powerful and so naive is a dangerous combination. As the Beyonder's understanding slowly grows, so too do his own desires, and even the Lord of Lies, Mephisto, fears what the Beyonder might finally decide he desires. Because if the Beyonder decides he wants to end all that is, even the combined might of the universe's cosmic powers might not be able to stop him.
Ooh, well then. Well, until then, the Beyonder needs to get some smack.
I would like the sweet stuff, please.
This issue.
So good.
Oh my goodness.
That was great.
Dude, okay.
They're not going to do it, but there's a part of me that is praying they do something similar to this in
the series?
In the series, yeah. I want there to be an omnipotent being who's hooked on smack.
Well, it's so funny.
Sweet stuff.
I'm reading this and I'm like, surely they're not going to do it. So let me just go ahead and we'll synopsis it real quick, and then we'll just kind of talk about whatever we want to talk about the 4 issues. But I'll tell you right now, this issue right here is the highlight for me so far. Yeah, so the Beyonder's like walking down through trying to understand happiness in this ghetto. And sure enough, Cloak and Dagger are checking out this like drug house. They're kind of keeping an eye on things down around there, trying to, trace back this shipment of drugs. I believe the Santa Angela was something that's been mentioned, or it hasn't yet. I think at the end of this issue it may. But regardless, they're still trying to find out where they can trace back these drugs. Well, they happen to be in the same slum that the Beyonder is. And the Beyonder runs into these couple guys like, hey, why don't you come in here? And they're like, hey, Beyonder's like, hey, I'm looking for happiness. Well, we got that right in here. Come on in here. So he walks into this house, and their plan is to kill the Beyonder, our nefarious drug dealers here, kill the Beyonder by injecting enough heroin in him to probably kill a horse. And then they were going to take whatever he had upon him. Well, just as one of the guys is getting ready to put the needle into his arm, Cloak and Dagger show up, and they wipe him. They kind of take him out. What we didn't realize is, and what I didn't realize, because you can't see it in the panel, but he does inject him with the heroin, I believe.
Yeah, he does.
So the Beyonder's kind of standing there, and he's upset. He's like, why would you guys do this? I've come in here for happiness. They told me I was going to be happy. Why would you take that away from me? And so the Beyonder, like, straight up takes Cloak and Dagger's powers away from them, which is, do I want to be a vigilante? Do I not? Well, they're extremely happy that this happens. They are now powerless. They can get back to being human beings. This is something that they've wanted this whole time. Beyonder's like, well, wait a second. I meant to punish you. What are you talking about? And they're like, well, hey, how come the heroin's not like laying you out on your ass right now? He's like, well, it's because I haven't let it hit me yet. I've just decided to not let it do so. And he's like, let me just turn that off. And he lets the H take over. And I swear, dude, I would have loved to have read just 3 pages of the Beyonder high as shit.
Can we get a trade paperback of just the Beyonder hooked on drugs?
So he's sitting there, and of course he realizes what a mistake that is, and how much pain drugs and the addiction to drugs can cause, brings himself out of it immediately. And then he's like, look, I understand what you guys are trying to do. So let me just do that for you. Snaps his fingers, and every drug dealer within the immediate area turns into dust. He just eradicates them. And Cloak and Dagger are like, whoa, wait a second. Hold on just a second.
What are you doing?
and then the commander's like, well, he's like, I understand. He's like, well, let me go ahead and give you your powers back. And so he ends up giving them their powers back. But Cloak and Dagger are trying to talk some sense into them. And this is where the important part of that issue comes in, where these two are vigilantes. They attack these people, and they make them see the wrong that they're doing. And they explain to the Beyonder, look, if there's something that's done, if there's some type of wrong that's done, if somebody does something evil, the purpose that Cloak and Dagger have is to try and give them the opportunity to reform. Now, I don't know how much of a level that speaks to you, Mark Radulich, considering the business you're in, sir. But it's they're trying to explain, we give them the opportunity to reform. If you just do, somebody does something evil, boom, you're dead. There's no chance for reform there. So Beyonder comes to a great understanding as to what they're talking about and says, okay, you guys can have your powers back. I believe in what you're doing. And oh, by the way, everybody that's turned to dust, they're brought back as well. So you have no consequences in this issue other than the fact that we get a great understanding of, number one, the Beyonder's power, and number two, what Cloak and Dagger are trying to do. Now I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. Nope. He says, I brought everybody back to life, giving them the chance to become better if they so choose. And off goes the Beyonder, just much like Michael Landon on Highway to Heaven, or Bruce Banner walking that lonely road. The whole television series. I don't know, but I love this. All right, first 4 issues, Mark. Let's get to it. What do you think? You got anything else you'd like to talk about on that, or what's your favorite part?
I know you're trying to limit to the first 4, but let me just say, in general, I like the idea that this was one story told over 11 issues. Maybe it didn't need to be 11 issues, but no,
I ain't no maybe about
it. But it definitely felt like I know we talked earlier about the television show kind of going in their own direction with it, kind of reshaping it for a 2018 audience. Mostly, for probably like teenage girls. Your daughter should have a field day with this, by the way.
Oh, I can't wait.
But the point being that you could have just taken this concept and turned this into a TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Them struggling with their powers, them struggling with the morality of what they're doing. But the whole thread of the series being chasing down this one particular mob and trying to disrupt their heroine. The one thing that kind of bothered me about it, though, was it started off with a very simple mission: save other runaways.
Yeah.
And they forgot about that real quick.
Yeah, and then they went to the easy attainable goal of destroying the drug trade. Oh, right. That's easy.
Well, the thing of it was like they justified the change in mission statement by like, well, drugs affect runaways. Okay, but there's still runaways out there.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen more. And that, like, I liked the opening, breaking up the peep show, and saving the girls and everything else. And I wanted to see a little bit more of that. But just I think in general, like I said, I think this whole thing kind of works as a television series.
Yeah.
The way they wrote this story.
Yeah. Well, I already talked about my highlight, and that's issue 4. I knew Spider-Man was going to have to show up at some point. There is a very big overtone here of the thing that captured me in the first 4 issues is Cloak's struggle, or maybe not even a struggle. Sometimes it just seemed like this Cloak was an evil dude. I really got that impression.
He was very manipulated.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, this is going to be something that's explained later in the issues. I'm going to get a better explanation as to what this evil force is. If clearly Tyrone is changed when he puts the cloak on. That's evident just by in the way he speaks. His stutter goes away, and some of the language that he uses.
I would not be surprised if at some point they explained it as there's an actual like cosmic entity that is sort of taking over him.
Yeah,
that, like, he doesn't so much have a power as he is a vessel for another entity.
There's something there, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, let's get through issues 5 through 8 real quick. So issue 5, just real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you're keeping track, we're in March of 1986, and guess what happens in March of 1986? The price of a comic goes up 10 cents to 75 cents. I'm outraged. Looking for the ever elusive Santa Angela ship that is bringing drugs to the mainland, they find out a plot to kill Detective Bridget O'Reilly. Yes, our detective we met in the first issue. They're now going. Cops that are on the take have got a plan to kill her. So they tail her and they arrive too late as she is trapped in.
Can we just talk about this for 1 second?
Yeah.
Am I alone in getting a little tired of the dirty cop trope?
Well, this is 1986, man.
I understand that.
This is where we're starting to love it.
I get it, but it's 2018, and now reading it, it's a little hackneyed. There's not a single good cop in the universe.
No, there isn't.
Like, I want to write a story like the righteous cop. Like, he doesn't sleep with married nurses, nor he doesn't cheat on his wife. He's not taking money from the mob, because there's really like even Jim Gordon on Gotham, like he's supposed to be like the righteous cop, but he's done murder. He tried to murder the Penguin.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a big part of the series, that he essentially did murder him, and then like everybody on that show can come back to life.
Much like a comic book.
Yeah, much like a comic book. So, but I mean, like, it just, I understand that this is 1985 and it wasn't as big of a thing, you know, when we were coming out of the 70s, where there were a lot of, you know, cops on the take and everything. At least that's what they say in the movies.
Yeah.
But still, it's just like, I'm reading this, and I'm just like, oh, yet again, another police precinct completely with corrupt cops, yada, yada, yada.
Hell, did we have that? I can't remember if we had that in Black Lightning as well, and that was 10 years prior to this.
Yeah, it's the 100 own the cops too.
There we go. Okay. So they arrive too late, as Bridget is actually trapped inside of a cage, victim to a gas that's made by the same drugs and the same pharmacist responsible for Cloak and Dagger's own powers. Breaking through and able to, well, I shouldn't say breaking through. I think Cloak phases in and phases out, or does whatever he does best.
Yeah, he like, what do you call it? Not
transports.
Teleports, yeah.
Yeah. Teleports in there, grabs Bridget, brings her out. She's like the only one that has a little bit of life left in her.
She was mostly dead.
Mostly dead. Dagger tries to revive her, but fails.
They needed Miracle Max.
They what? Miracle Max.
Princess Bride.
Sure.
He's mostly dead. Really?
It's been a while, Mark. I'm just glad you gave me something to go on there.
He's mostly dead. He said to bluff, which is too bluff. Liar!
Wow.
Get away from me, witch. I'm not a witch. I'm your wife.
All right. So Dagger tries to revive Bridget, and which apparently she's tried this in the past, but it's all
let us in, or I'll call the Brood Squad. You are the Brood Squad.
I know that quote. I do know that one.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right. But it's for naught, and the duo Cloak and Dagger leave. But shortly after they leave, Bridget's eyes open, and she is reborn as Mayhem.
Yeah, that's about where I got to. I got to an issue after that. Where you know, it's like Mayhem, like, so Bridget becomes this zombie creature who's just out for vengeance, but can have these long and depth philosophical conversations with Dagger.
Yes, she does.
You ever just want to jerk off onto a comic?
Yeah.
I mean, metaphysically.
Oh, okay. So Mayhem, she has this. She is a being with claws, and she emits a paralyzing venom vapor that apparently can be used as a truth serum. So there you go. The drugs we find out in this issue are that they're tracking from the Santa Angela. We find out they're going to be delivered to a religious festival, and somehow the church either may or may not be involved. But either way, they're using the church to distribute these drugs that these guys that Cloak and Dagger are tracking. Now, issue 6. To stop the drugs being distributed at the religious festival, they now have to team with Mayhem. Dagger is becoming more ruthless, allowing a member of the gang to be left in Cloak's darkness, as he would not talk. We soon find out that the priest of the Holy Ghost Church, the one that has been providing Cloak and Dagger sanctuary, is unaware that the statues that have come from the Santa Angela ship are now being handed out in this religious festival, and they are full of drugs.
The drugs are always in the Bible. We learned that from Ozark.
That's right.
They're always in the statues or the Bibles.
That's where you look. So there's a big confrontation on the streets where the parishioners / drug dealers have it out with Cloak and Dagger. And I don't know how many freaking times I have to see Cloak open up his cloak and bullets be shot into him. Bullets go into his cloak and it doesn't hurt him.
Not for nothing, but why don't they ever shoot him in the head?
No idea. All I know is, like, you get that issue after issue. Okay, we know his powers. Guns can't. That doesn't stop anybody from shooting on him. But yes, it happens.
But only into the abyss that is his cloak.
That's right.
Never once between the eyes.
During the fray, an innocent churchgoer falls, and raging Dagger. Mayhem follows some guys by herself and enacts vengeance without mercy. And there's a couple times, I don't know if you picked up on it, but it happens over and over. Other people. Okay.
What? Why would you come out here to ask me if it's bedtime?
I feel like I'm having deja vu.
What? Do you want my attention? Hi.
Is it bedtime?
Come here.
What?
Now you have my attention. You have all of my attention. Is this what you wanted?
Daddy.
Yes.
Is it bedtime?
I don't. What? Time wake up. That Pac-Man game on my.
No, because it's bedtime.
Time for bed.
It's summer vacation, so we let you keep your TV on for a little while. But no, you cannot play video games. Get up, Spaghetti. Come on, Spaghetti. Get up. Do not come again out of the room. I will come and say goodnight to you when I'm done with my show. And I will turn off your TV at that time. Stop coming out to ask me if it's bedtime. And lift up your pants. I can see your butt crack. Wait, Joe, come here. Come here. You want to sing the butt crack song real quick?
Sing it.
Come here. Sing the butt crack song. Perform for people. Come on. Come on, Michael. Perform. Sing the butt crack song.
He has no interest. None. He's still trying to figure out if it's bedtime.
Well, he's doing the butt crack dance, but you can't hear him sing the butt crack song because he was like whispering it.
Oh, come on, man. That's comedy.
You got to do it into the microphone.
I like butt cracks.
Nice.
Okay. What? Do you want to wear my headphones?
No.
What do you want?
That's the microphone.
This is the microphone right here.
Okay. I like butt cracks. I like butt cracks.
You hear him? I like butt cracks. I like butt cracks. All right, butt crack, go to bed.
If Ronnie Adams was on here right now, there would be British accents flying all over the place.
Yeah, there would. This whole gag reel is going to be my interactions with my son. You realize that, right?
Of course.
the is it bedtime bonanza?
Indeed. Is it bedtime? Is it Daddy?
Daddy,
okay.
I've forgotten what bedtime is.
Why is the sun down? Why is it dark out? Is it bedtime?
I like when Ronnie does it. It's like a proper British accent. When you do it, it's a little Cockney. Hello. Hello. Bedtime yet?
It's bedtime out there. I don't understand. Don't understand what the darkness. So there's many a time.
Is your wife a goer? Sorry, go ahead.
Your wife a goer. There's many a time throughout this, like random people call Cloak Fright Face. Yes. And it's not just one person. Okay, it continues throughout the issues. Like different people just call him Fright Face. I have no idea if that was like maybe what they planned to call him at one point and just decided no, we're going to go with Cloak. But anyway, Fright Face comes up out of here all the time. So Mayhem.
Well, Fright Face and Dagger probably wouldn't have sold many comics.
Nah, yeah, we'll go with Cloak and Dagger. It has a little bit more of a catch to it.
Sure.
So yeah, Mayhem goes and acts some vengeance. I think it's time to find out where the source of these drugs are. They come to a realization. Okay, we've got to figure out where the source of these drugs are and eliminate it. I put this issue on here. The ultimate thoughts and prayers versus action with the priest. There was a discussion at the end of issue 6 where Cloak is like up in his face and it's like, well, how do you plan to, stop this problem with your prayers? So yes. Okay. So that's issue 6. Issue 7, ladies and gentlemen.
Are we supposed to use harsh language? Sorry.
Issue 7, Mark Silvestri shows up as penciler. All right. Now, I'm excited about that because Mark Silvestri is one of my favorite artists. Like I said, he went off to help found the Image Comics, and I loved his art, especially growing up with the X-Men. He was on X-Men for quite a while, and then, of course, did Cyberforce with Image. But anyway, so issue 7, Cloak and Dagger have found the ship, Santa Angela. Now, we find out Cloak's darkness is having some issues as it's kind of feeding on him. Stuff that's not going to get resolved, ladies and gentlemen. Just putting that out there. That never gets addressed maybe once or twice again throughout the series, but there's not like a big reveal as to what this is, but you still get the impression that there's something that's affecting him. Okay. Now, throughout this issue, Dagger ends up getting knocked below decks, and she's out while Cloak is searching for her. They end up running into a guy by the name of Bill Clayton, who's a stowaway on the ship. He ends up convincing them that to kind of just lay low until they reach their destination, and when they do, they arrive in Marseille, France. Marseille. Thank you. I knew I was pronouncing it wrong. Marseille. Yes, they end up in Marseille, France, and as the shipmates are down there dealing with the authorities and, of course, giving them the money to kind of let them pass through with these drugs, we find out that it's actually become like it went from a drug smuggling to a tech smuggling operation. Either way, Cloak and Dagger are having none of it, and they step in and attack, I guess it would say, the shipmates, these evildoers here in Marseille. Also, during this time, as the battle's going on, trucks leave with the tech, and they leave outside the countryside. So, just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, as the battle's going on, the product leaves the harbor in trucks. So it's all for naught. Although they caught the Santa Angela on fire, it's burning to the ground or to the water. And Bill just talks to him and says, hey, look, while we're here, since we don't really have much left to go, this is I don't know, Mark, it becomes a third wheel thing where Bill Clayton says, why don't we just take a vacation? We're here in Marseille. So that's kind of where we end issue 7. Cloak's kind of left wondering if he's losing connection with Dagger. There's a point, and I think at the end of that issue, where he's kind of like decided to let some dealers die in a fire. But Dagger makes the ultimate decision to try and save these bad guys. So they wouldn't die. But so again, it's Cloak's want to have a manipulation. I wouldn't say manipulation. He needs this connection with her. He can't. If there's any possible way that Dagger could leave, or not.
It's a really abusive relationship, isn't it?
It's very strange, and they really don't they don't give you much to go on in here, other than the fact that he's got to have her. He's got to have her. And there's a possibility that she's going to leave. He gets all paranoid and all freaked out. Now, Bill Clayton showed up, and he's kind of sweet on Dagger.
Every time you do that, I want to say it's Bill Clinton.
Not Bill Clinton, but Bill Clayton. Clinton. So he shows up, and he convinces us, like, hey, why don't we just take some time off? Let's have a vacation here in Marseille. We don't know where we're going. We don't know where the trucks are going. Let's take some time and regroup. So that's the end of issue 7. Now, issue 8, titled Vacation, stars the penciling talents of Mike Mignola of Hellboy fame. So Dagger goes out on the town with Bill Clayton while Cloak pretty much sits and broods. Now, this was an interesting issue. He sits and broods, and he's like, I'll just sit back here in the shadows while you guys go off and have your fun, do whatever. We're also shown the priest. Huh?
Does it say it like that?
He's kind of emo throughout this. We're shown the priest of the Holy Ghost Church. He's having issues. I think he brings in Damian Hellstrom at one point, and Damian Hellstrom's like, I'm sorry, I can't help you, because this priest is absolutely convinced that not only is Cloak an influence on Dagger, but Cloak is potentially possessed by something. And Damian Hellstrom is like, no, thank you. So I don't want any part of it. Mayhem, by the way, went to the local police precinct. Remember, this is the fallen Bridget O'Reilly. She goes to the police precinct looking for the cop that betrayed her. And I think she finds her and kind of she finds him, puts him in a coma. Now, alone in Marseille, Cloak finds some local drug dealers. Am I saying it right? Marseille?
No, you are. It's just like the way that you had to emphasize it is like in Marseille.
Marseille.
Don't correct me.
Marseille, Cloak finds some local drug dealers, but even after enveloping them, the hunger of darkness is still eating away at him. So again, he's got to. Dagger's light helps him keep this hunger satiated sometimes, but he can also get it from people, and that's kind of what he does. He throws them into his cloak. The darkness feeds off of them, and then he kind of spits them out as like scared to death husks. That's probably about the best way to put it. Now, finding an escape killer. This was pretty interesting. Finding an escape killer, Cloak steps out in front of this guy's car, and the car just dives into this dimension. So again, it's huge dark force dimension, can just envelop just about anything. And as the car's flying down and the killer's in there scared to death, Cloak gets the idea just to let the car come back out. And he does, instead of feeding off of him. But what happens is the car comes right out of his cloak at the bend of a road. And Cloak just watches this guy crash through this fence and fall to his death and explode. So the car crashes off a cliff. And at the end, I think the last few words are, but is Cloak to blame? So it kind of obviously, again, is Cloak a bad guy? Is he a good guy? I don't know. He just dispensed his own justice on this escaped killer, letting him fall to his death, which is something he tried to do earlier at the port, where he's want to let those guys die in a fire. Now with Dagger not by his side, she's off gallivanting with Bill Clinton, and you know where that's going to end. But no, she's off away from him, so we can kind of see how this darkness and this evil is taking over Cloak. But there you go, Mark. We just talked about issues 4 through 8. Anything? I know you said you stopped at about 7, I think 6 or 7. So anything you take away from that? Anything you want to talk about? Any questions, comments?
I don't know. I think the priest is, other than the drug dealers, the priest is the real villain of this thing. He's such an asshole.
I don't know what his deal is, but when we get into issue 9, 10, and 11, well, this final stretch, he, I think in this next issue is doing some, like, he's doing some summoning. Like, he becomes like a full-on, I don't know. He's not a devil worshiper, but he's definitely doing some freaky deaky stuff. And he's
freaky
deaky stuff. Some stuff that is, you know, it's definitely not praying to the God that you think he should be praying to in this church. He's got candles surrounding him. So yeah, I do want to, let me see what else. I'm trying to think of anything that I wanted to kind of pick out of those 4 issues. I mean, we talked about Bridget, who she's going to show up here in a little bit as she becomes Mayhem. She kind of felt like, oh, hey, we're introducing a character. Check her out, which I've never heard of her before this. Have you ever heard of Mayhem before this?
Yeah. Mayhem was the one that was causing all the problems where people had to get better insurance.
I was expecting a metal reference. At least.
You don't remember the
oh, I know who Mayhem is. I have followed Mayhem on Facebook.
Really?
Believe it or not, yes. He's got a Facebook account.
Why?
Well, whatever he is. What is it? What is it? What commercial is that? Geico?
Something like that, yeah.
Or Allstate? But yeah, he has some funny stuff every once in a while he puts on Facebook. That same dude. Not the actor, the actual, the character Mayhem from those commercials. Asking me why? Because he's funny.
Okay. You don't get hot about it.
No, I'm going to get upset. All right, let's finish this out. Issues 9 through 11 and 1 and 2 of Strange Tales. So we're in the home stretch, Mark Radulich. Even though we're taking a vacation, we're taking a little break. All right, that's going to be ending soon, I would assume. They've got to track these drug dealers down and try to stop it at the source. Well, before that happens, vacation has to end. Now we start out issue 9. Some time has passed because now Dagger is a member of the Marseille circus. That's nice. Right. Yeah, she joins the circus. So I'm thinking there had to have been, they kind of go on. It sounds like either like 2 weeks to a month is maybe passed. And she's like dancing on the back of whatever. And she's actually using her powers to entertain all of the fans or all of the circus goers. But Cloak has come back, and Cloak's going to come back. And he has to remind Dagger of the mission. And guess who got her into the circus? Oh, that's right. Old Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton kind of turned her on to the circus, but Cloak has come back and said, hey, look, you remember the mission? The mission to end this drug trade and get it done and put a stop to it. So he apologizes to Dagger, tries to make things right with her. But again, the writer makes it seem like it's all a ruse, because he then, after he apologizes, he's like, but she'll never know my true intentions. Some bullshit like that. So again, you're like, is Cloak this evil dude? I don't know what the hell's going on. The priest, as I mentioned earlier, he's visited by Mayhem. Mayhem comes and talks to him like she's trying to find some redemption or whatever. So the first person she thinks of going to is this priest of the Church of the Holy Ghost. And that's where he says he believes that Cloak and Dagger are possessed, and now he's tired of trying to reach out to God. He's going to do something different. And he does this like prayer or something, and Cloak, all the way halfway across the world, feels something hit him in the chest or something. He feels a pain, and that's it. We're not coming back to that plot thread again. That's about the end of it. So again, this is probably something he had on the back burner for more issues, but they ran out of time. Okay. So now the gang is heading to Munich with the circus. Cloak actually tells Dagger, hey, look, you can stay with the circus because she's just so happy. She's happy there, Mark Radulich. Says, you can stay there with the circus just so long as we can still plan on trying to figure out where these guys are at and we can make our move. Until then, let's go ahead and keep traveling. So they travel with the circus. During that time, some bad guys are watching, and they launch an attack. There's more of Cloak's cape coming and absorbing bullets. And luckily, the Carnies are there to help defend them. Dagger's unicorn in quotes, the horse that she was dancing on that they strapped a horn to. Dagger's unicorn is caught in the crossfire. And Dagger unleashes on these guys. So again, something trips her. She gets pissed. She unleashes her light daggers. And now I think the mission is back on. It's time to find out who these guys are that are giving them a hard time, and also find out how to end this drug trade. All right. Next issue. Issue 10. Dr. Doom. They end up going to Latveria, my friend. And this is a strange issue, because Dr. Doom is actually planning to end the nuclear age. He puts out these things, like he puts this grand plan together, shoots this beam of light into the air. Of course, Dagger's like, oh, look at the pretty light. But he's got this plan to like end all. Look at the pretty light. He's going to put this thing out there to like denuclearize. Boy, I wish I could remember the word he used. But pretty much he's going to render all nuclear material out there inert, so that no one can use nuclear bombs. It sounds like a pretty damn virtuous mission, in my opinion. And of course, Cloak and Dagger end up, along with Bill Clinton, they end up at Castle Doom. And we get some insight into nuclear power and responsibility. There's a big talk about that. They decide, okay, well, we need to destroy this device that is causing this and the denuclearization, nuclear and Dagger tries to take it out, no effect. And they actually attack Dr. Doom, and there's a point where Cloak brings Dr. Doom into the Dark Force dimension. And Doom is like firing off like a bunch of energy bolts. He's like, well, screw this. There's not much I can do. And so he just starts walking, and he ends up finding his mom in there. And now remember, in the Dark Force dimension, it kind of shows you your own hell. Right. So he's sitting there talking with his mom about some stuff. And all of a sudden, there's like this pair of eyes that kind of look down on him. And Dr. Doom's like, I sense something else in here. So there's some insight to the dark dimension. I think there's something that, again, may be controlling Cloak and making him evil. So Dr. Doom like turns his blast over towards these pair of eyes, shoots him, and all of a sudden Cloak like yells out and Dr. Doom spews forth. So there's something inside of him. I don't know what's going on. Okay. So there's Dr. Doom, gets out of there. And the only way that they trick him is trick him into destroying the machine, because they can't destroy the machine. They just don't have the power to do it. Cloak grabs Dr. Doom again, and as Dr. Doom is firing off blasts, Cloak lets one of the blasts hit the machine. The machine gets destroyed by Dr. Doom's own hand, and then they promptly get the fuck out of there. All right, so that's issue 10. Now we're coming up on the 40-page finale. All right, are we going to get some things resolved? Unfortunately not. There's two parts of a story arc here. The first one is a story that takes place near Bethlehem on Christmas. And of course, Bill's still at their side. And we find out the truck that was delivering those parts ends up at this site that they're at. And I'll be damned if Bill Clinton was not the drug dealer after all. Yes, you thought he was a stowaway on the ship? No, he was a member of the gang on the ship. And he was actually the runner, the drug runner, the guy behind it all. That's right. So Bill Clayton, we find out is the reason for these drugs being shipped. Well, some shit goes down. He gets shot. And it turns out the way he got shot was he jumped in front of Dagger because he was trying to protect her. He fell in love with Dagger throughout this time across Europe. You know, if you go backpacking across Europe with a pretty lady, it's just bound to happen.
Sure.
So she ends up dying, or excuse me, he ends up dying, but with his last breath, he tells her, look, the drugs are originating from the Golden Triangle. All right. So we're going to head to the Golden Triangle. It is on, Mark Radulich. We know where it's finally going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end at the Golden Triangle. So the final story is called Quest's End. And this, dude, I really wish you would have read this, because you would have been scratching your head just like I was. This is where you start to realize that these guys ran out of time, or they had a larger story arc that or I should say they had a small story arc that they thought they had to stretch out over a long period of time and didn't realize that their shit wasn't selling, because things come to a insane pace where Cloak and Dagger head to the Golden Triangle, which is, I assume, some Asian country. Do you know where have you ever heard of the Golden Triangle? Is that an actual place?
Yes, I believe it is. I don't remember where I've heard it from, though.
Well, okay. Well, I can tell you there's some Asians. The Asian government's after them. An Asian government, I should say, is after them. And also they're also trying to find out where these drugs are headquartered at, or where the opiates are. So let me see if I wrote down my notes here. So the Golden Triangle, Cloak and Dagger find a large drug manufacturer who somehow has the ability to hurt Cloak. There's this American guy who has enslaved all these people to do all these drugs. When Cloak and Dagger shows up, he takes a spear, throws it in, like, heats up the blade in a fire, and then throws it at Cloak. And once it hits Cloak, it actually hits him and impales him. So they found something that hurts him. What it is, I don't know. I have no idea. I just know he's hurt. They got to go find some locals. The locals patch him up, and they're back on the loose to go and try and stop this guy. Well, the only way that they can do this, as Dagger decides to go try and face the leader of these drug runners alone, she actually signals the Asian government's planes by using her light powers, and we get this big battle between the Asian government. Are you following me here, Mark Radulich? Don't fall asleep on me. The Asian government, the drug lord are now fighting, and Cloak and Dagger are just watching it go on. So they decide, okay, well, we got to get the locals out of here. Cloak goes and grabs them and teleports them away. And when all is said and done, I don't even know his name. I just know he's an American that went there to help liberate these people and instead became a drug kingpin. And he shows up just at the end, and he's about to do something. Like he throws another spear at Cloak. Dagger hits it with a light, catches it on fire. The spear goes flying into the poppy fields, and everything erupts into flames. The poppy fields go down.
Sounds like a Simpsons show.
I don't know dude, I don't know what. I just know that, the drug kingpin probably had like at least a 4-story arc before this ever happened. And they were like, well, scrap that. I had no idea. I didn't know this guy just shows up out of nowhere, and the Asian government's involved. So there you go. Poppy fields are burning. Their mission is complete. Cloak and Dagger decide to head home. All right. So that's the end of the regular series. Now let's talk about Strange Tales 1 and Strange Tales 2. There are still questions that I feel need to be resolved here, ladies and gentlemen. Who's this evil force, or what is this evil force driving Cloak to be so needy, I guess I would say. Well, Strange Tales 1, Cloak and Dagger are off the coast of India. They're on a ship. They're working their way home. The ship ends up capsizing. There's a lot of pilgrims that fall into the water, and all of a sudden these mysterious diamonds of light. Follow me, Mark Radlich?
I'm with you.
Mysterious diamonds of light suck the life force from the drowning pilgrims. And while Dagger watches the horrible display from Cloak's cloak, I guess I would say, because he saved her, but she's watching as everything unfolds before her. Even though it's tragic that all these people who are drowning, all of a sudden they're just getting killed by these beams of light, she thinks the lights are beautiful. So Cloak and Dagger follow the diamonds to their source, which happens to be a sect of people who use the light that they've drained from these people as happiness. Okay, they put it into themselves, or they use it somehow for their own happiness. Kind of similar to like a drug, I guess I would say. And as the group come towards Cloak to fill him with light, so they can control light as well, a pair of hands radiates him from behind that belonged to a guy by the name of Lord of Light, or as Dagger calls him, Daddy. That's right. Yes. Now, see, this goes back to the origin of Tandy, who her mom becomes a supermodel, but her dad ran off to India, and that changed her mom a lot. And that's kind of why Tandy ran away in the first place. So, yes, her biological dad has now appeared, and he is the Lord of Light. When Cloak gets hit with this light, it actually transforms Cloak back into Tyrone. So the Cloak is kind of, just kind of hanging off of him, and he's back to his stuttering old self. So yes, Tandy has been reunited with her dad, but there's some shady stuff going on here because she doesn't know if he's killing these people. His excuse is that they're doomed anyway, so he saves them by taking their life force and putting them in there. Well, of course, that's not what's going on. Cloak finds out in issue 2 that Tandy's father is actually using the light to drain those of their life force, even though they aren't close to death. Regaining his powers, Cloak confronts him in front of Dagger, and a battle ensues. Cloak makes her father, the Lord of Light, I don't even know, I think his name's Nathan. He makes Nathan realize that he is also siphoning Dagger's light, which he's been doing throughout these issues. He was siphoning Dagger's light, and even though he has done this so much, she has now been left powerless. He continues to do so without concern for the fact that it may kill her. Coming to this realization, Nathan, the Lord of Light, runs into Cloak, sacrificing himself to the dark dimension so not to further harm anyone. This satiates the Cloak's hunger for light and releases its hold on Tyrone. Dagger believes that Cloak saved her dad, and tells him that she will love him forever. And that's how we end the second issue. So, Mark, I know that was a long, it took my time. You stopped at issue 7, and rightfully so. We're working on 11 o'clock here, going in 2 minutes, or going in 2 hours. But so. Yes,
you gave up on this comic, and I don't blame you.
Let me tell you about. First off, I started my reading at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I finished up close to a little bit after 4 to go eat, and then come back and finish this last Strange Tales issues 1 and 2, which were, thank goodness, an easy read because they were only 11 pages a piece. But still, it was like Bill Mantlo had decided, I have to cram every freaking thing into these 2 issues. Because there was one page that I swear had 20 panels on it. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, okay, I'll tell you right now. People are suffering with me on this podcast because I had to suffer through near 4 hours of reading Cloak and Dagger. Now, one thing is for certain. I can tell people, and I can look them in the face, and I can say, I read the whole series. The whole 1985 series, I did those 11 issues. I did Strange Tales 1 and 2. So I know what... I now feel like I have a better understanding of these characters going into the series. Way better than what I did. So let me just give my final thoughts on the issues and the story itself, and then I'll turn you loose with your final thoughts. But number one, 1980s comics, okay? Some you can take, some you can leave. I respect Bill Mantlo for what he did here. I respect him for his creations. But when it comes to writing a comic book, I don't know. This story meandered, and there was way too much left on the plate. Now, here's the thing. I say that, but Strange Tales did continue with Cloak and Dagger stories, at least for a little while after this. I think Bill Mantlo actually stopped writing the story at issue 6. I think I remember reading that in the wiki. So issue 6 of Strange Tales, Bill Mantlo probably either wrapped up whatever he was going to say, or, much like what we saw in issues 1 through 11, just ran out of time and said, okay, well, I've got to move on to other things. It's not surprising to me that the series was canceled, because it really did had a great single theme. Let's stop the drugs. We want to stop the drugs. Okay.
Yeah, follow the trail. This one drug shipment.
Yeah. This one drug shipment. And our plan's going to be done. That was just a little overreaching. And at some point it's become, okay, now we're going to stop the drug trade. Okay, 2 people are not going to make much of an impact, or you're going to be running your ass off. And there's been plenty of times. I don't know if you saw any in the issues that you were reading, but there were plenty of times where Dagger just said, "I'm tired," and I said to myself, "Yeah, so am I." I felt wore out. I was like, "My gosh, she wants to take a nap. So do I." I mean, it was just either get on with it or just stop with the in the plot. Do something to end the plot or further the plot or keep it interesting. Don't rehash the fucking origin 5 times throughout the series.
Yeah. I think that was my biggest problem with this. Like, and I mentioned that before, like my biggest issue with getting through this thing was because I was interested in it, but it was the constant repetition of the same information. Mm-hmm. And I get that part of the problem is we're reading it all at once. So I don't think there was ever any consideration for the fact that at some point this was going to be collected in trade paper. Like, I don't know if the writers ever thought about that.
No.
I mean, the Medium is a monthly magazine.
Yep.
So it's kind of like when you're watching a TV show and they're like, previously on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And they do a little synopsis of what happened in the previous episode, because you don't remember everything that happened from the previous week that they're going to build on. So the comic has to do the same thing. But when you're reading it in the trade
and it's part of the narrative, it gets on your nerves real quick and it's boring.
Yes. I felt the fatigue from that quite a few times. Rehashing of the origin. Where are they at? Oh, you know, Cloak's inner monologue of, oh, man, we've been doing this for the last 5 days, and you know, it all started from us getting infected or injected with the drugs, and then we decided to do this. Then mayhem happened, and it's like, okay, so all right, that's common missteps. I wouldn't say missteps, but that's just common fare for mid-1980s comic books. Let the art speak, though, is the other thing I want to say. Please, they had Mark Silvestri on here, Mike Mignola, Art Adams showed up. There's points where you could just go ahead and let the art speak. Let the guys have some confidence who's taken over the book and let them tell the story just by in the art. It can be done. And we're talking about a series that went 11 issues that honestly could have been done. How many issues do you think this could have been done in? Mark, do you have
6?
6? Half. Oh, yeah, almost half. Well, actually, it is half if you're counting Strange Tales 1 and 2. So, yeah, this is something that probably could have been done it could have been rather condensed. The Strange Tales issues where she finds her dad and we got diamonds. I don't know what fucking trip this guy went on. But, I mean, that was some out of the world stuff right there. That it just didn't feel like we went from street level vigilantes with some pretty fantastical powers to some really crazy metaphysical shit that's going on over in India. So as street level as I'd love to say this stayed, it really didn't. It started straying from that and things got a lot more fantastical as we progress through the series. We got a carnival. We have fucking Dr. Doom showing up and denuclearizing everything. And then we end up in India where, you know, she meets her dad, who's the Lord of Light. That's just some crazy, just some crazy stuff going on. And we don't, in this particular set of stories here, Mayhem finds the priest who's doing some crazy incantations. She leaves, it's like, why did I come to you? You're obviously crazy. The priest does something weird, and then that is done. We're done. That's it. Mayhem doesn't show back up. The priest doesn't show back up. So as to whether that continues throughout Strange Tales, it may. But there's only 4 other issues that Bill Mantlo tells the story in. And if it's an indicative of what we just read, he's not completing anything in those 4 stories. Or if he does, it's going to feel like a damn NASCAR wreck where everything's going at 100 mile an hour and everything just runs into each other and you have no idea what the hell is going on. So, but regardless, I'm glad I had the opportunity to sit here and tell everybody, including you, Mark Radulich, what happened in the story. And talk about these characters. So as for recommending it to anybody, I don't know I really don't know. It depends. I'll tell you what, if the series is good that is coming up, I might tell somebody, hey, you might want to check out like the first 2 or 3 issues of the series. I definitely
I have to see the series first because like the Runaways, for example, I don't remember, independent of that show, I would recommend the book. It was a great book.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone was like, hey, watch that show, do you have it, can you recommend any Runaway stuff? I don't know if I would, just based on the show. It's like, yeah, it's a very different experience.
Oh, you're talking about, Cloak and Dagger. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about Runaways. But,
okay.
but again, the same thing. Like, people might want, are going to watch Cloak and Dagger on Freeform theoretically, and then they might turn around and be like, "Oh, I'm going to get some Cloak and Dagger comics." And I'm like, you might not want to waste your time.
Yeah, I imagine the 4-issue miniseries probably covers some good stuff in there. I would hope it didn't feel as rushed as this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this was his first. This wasn't his first ongoing. He did Incredible Hulk prior to this, so I don't know what he was planning. I don't know if he was just planning on going forever with Cloak and Dagger, and then things were like, okay, well, sales aren't doing so hot. But yeah, the gem out of this one is their interaction with Beyonder, which really kind of, in my opinion, even though it was kind of the consequences were pretty throwaway. The drug dealers are back to normal. He pretty much snaps his finger, and everything that happened prior to this is reversed.
It made me think of, like, you know, what are they gonna? You know, it's like, are they gonna introduce the Beyonder in the next Infinity in the next Avengers movie?
Oh man,
you know, like. I mean, I've heard some things. I don't want to get into it now, but I've heard that essentially the plot of the next movie is they're gonna build their own Infinity Gauntlet using time travel.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's a Jesse Starcher move right there. I'd be all over that.
Absolutely. But I mean, another plausible thing would be they find out about the Beyonder, who can just, you know, undo whatever it was they just did.
He could. Very well could. Pretty powerful being. When they talk about power levels, I think we may have even talked about it on here. I think because we were comparing the Infinity Gauntlet to the Beyonder at some point, I think, on here. And we said that, you know, the Beyonder is pretty damn powerful. So yeah, but yeah, I love that interaction. This is street level coming in contact with godlike being, and in order for this godlike being to understand what happiness is and vengeance almost. And we also get a great insight as to the purpose of Cloak and Dagger and a purpose of a vigilante, and what they're trying to do. At least these two guys are trying to do. Frank Castle is almost like what the Beyonder did, where he's just like, okay, you're evil, boom, you're dead. And that issue put a great spin on it. But Mark, let's get out of here. We're working on 2 hours. You ready? You got anything else you'd like to say about the series?
No, let me go.
All right. Let me go.
Stop holding me hostage, damn it.
Plug your stuff, sir.
All right. I kid with Jesse Starcher.
He kids with me.
All right. So this week, if you're listening to this on YouTube, it's actually Everybody Hates Star Wars week here on the Religion Broadcasting Network. We've released some extra material right now. You'll find my short bit on Star Wars fans. Did that make sense to you? Like, did you go back and listen to it and like, yeah, man, I get what you're saying?
Oh yeah, dude, I follow you.
Okay. So just we got into a conversation and I went off like on a rant about Star Wars fans. So go ahead and give that a listen. I mean, look, I am a Star Wars fan, but you know, I think there's something to be said for maybe letting people make their movies, and you know, if you like it, fine. If you don't, fine. But stop judging a movie based on what you know. They're not there to make an individual movie for you. So you know, they're there to create an experience for the vast majority of people. You know, because the object here is to sell movie tickets, and I think, you know, so if the movie doesn't meet the individual expectation, then regardless of how objectively good it is, people are like, oh, it sucks. You know, Luke didn't knock the entire empire on its ass. You know, we're using the Force, therefore it's terrible. Anyway, so I made a comment about that, and that was about 10, 15 minutes about, you know, about Star Wars, and it was based on my reaction to Solo. But speaking of which, we had the Han Solo comic that we did here on Source Material. We'll be reviewing Solo tomorrow, the 29th of May, for Damn You Hollywood, and then the Metal Hammer of Doom. We did 2 extra videos for Galactic Empire, and then we will be reviewing the full album on Wednesday. No 4th show this week. No YouTube Red shows that everyone got excited about. No commentaries that I'm aware of.
Some people came a little too late to the party too there, Jason Teasley.
Yeah. So so just those 3 shows. Next week, this show will be all edited up and ready for your listening pleasure on the Religion Broadcasting Network proper. There'll be an on trial. It's the debate. It's the 1994 Oscar debate. We're calling this On Trial Civil Court. It'll be Forrest Gump versus The Shawshank Redemption. And then I'm sure what will be Jesse's favorite album of the year, we'll be looking at Lordy, Sexorcism.
It's interesting.
So in the weeks to come, we've got Kingdom Come with Alexis Hana on source material. Jesse and I will be talking Krypton, or at least we're going to try to. God, that series goes. And,
Does it really? Oh,
you haven't watched it yet?
I haven't watched any of it. I just know the basic premise of the first episode, and that's it.
It starts slow, the middle gets interesting, and then I'm like at the very end of it, and it's like, wait, what?
Oh boy!
All right, yeah. So you're gonna have to help me get through that one. And then we have a Ghost album that's coming out, prequel.
Oh, everybody's all about the Ghost. I don't know much about that band.
Yeah, they opened for Iron Maiden last year, which I would have enjoyed more if I hadn't been, going through the chemo. But they were a great band. It's one of the reasons why I wanted those tickets. So we'll be looking at. So speaking of 1985, we'll be looking at the John Byrne run on Fantastic Four, the Trial of Galactus, which I'm sure will be a lot of the same complaints.
No.
Stop talking so much.
Sorry, John Byrne.
We're going to review The Incredibles 2. And we'll be looking at Amorphous, the new album. And then we finish off June with Justice League America, Salvation Run. Shout out to Ollie's. Damn You, Hollywood will be reviewing Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And we're going to review the new Nine Inch Nails EP. And then we're just going to take a trip. I'm going to play some other Nine Inch Nails for Jesse that he's never heard before.
Oh, boy. Well. Ladies and gentlemen, go give the Radulich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. We have all sorts of great content out there dealing with MMA, wrestling, comics, talk movies, TV, all sorts of great stuff. You just heard the rundown of upcoming shows from Mark Radulich, so I really don't have much else to say. Just, if you see a wampa in a room, do me a favor. Don't shoot it in the face. All right?
Hands up. Don't shoot.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mark Radulich. I'm Jesse Starcher. We're ready to get out of here. Have a good one. Bye-bye.